The Atlanta Braves offense fools us once again into thinking they are back as they fail to take care of business against the Miami Marlins on Saturday and Sunday. We'll discuss that series. What can we do with this offense and this team going forward? Can they turn things around? We'll discuss all that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I am your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopBall. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube if you're new. Hit that thumbs up button so others can find us. And if you're listening on the audio version, please do me a favor. Leave me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. It does help me out tremendously whenever you do those things. And thank you so much for being an everyday or supporting us here at Locked On Braves. Thanks for all your great comments, the views. You've been killing it on the podcast lately. Thank you so much for all of that. And if you are an everydayer, again, let me know in the comments section below and let me know that you make Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. And let me know which Locked On podcast you make your second listen of each and every day. So many great podcasts to choose from here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's episode, we will recap the weekend series against the Marlins that started out with so much hope. It had me believing, and then it ended in bitter disappointment. We'll discuss all that happening in that series, my thoughts on this Braves team, who, again, we're looking at the division, and a lot of people are starting to focus on that. This wild card thing is not guaranteed. So a lot to get into. We'll also get into Minors Monday, and I get you set up for what's ahead this week. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Let's get into the weekend. It was a 4-game split with the Miami Marlins. I guess they are a big league team. They certainly showed it against the Atlanta Braves over the weekend. This is, in my opinion, and you're going to hear a little bit of a rant from me, as I have done far too often this year. It's just inexcusable for an Atlanta Braves team that has goals and aspirations of winning a World Series and had a lot of momentum, and you win the first 2 games, and at that point you're thinking, okay, they may very well sweep this thing. At the very minimum, they're going to win this series. If this is a team that is serious, and look, this is baseball, anything can happen. I get that. But if this is a team that is serious about getting on a hot run here, tracking down the Phillies, just getting into the postseason and doing something once they get there, you cannot let opportunities like this slip away. You are facing a Marlins team that just traded everybody. I believe their active payroll is less than $15 million. And you can't take care of business to at least win that series. Again, this is a series you probably should sweep, but sweeping a 4-game series is tough. At the very least, at home, you win this series. Good teams that want to be great win these series, and you can't get the job done. It's inexcusable, I think, for this team. Maybe I'm putting too high of standards on them. Maybe I still just believe too strongly in this team. And again, I put it in the thumbnail, fool me once. What did the saying go? That, well, they fooled me several times this year into still believing that this is a top-end team. And maybe that's just on me. I need to stop thinking that and believing that. But it's hard for me not to. I just still do. I still believe that this team has it in them. But then weekends like this, where you fail to win a series against the Jumbo Shrimp, it just still makes you kind of wonder, how good is this team? And it's the reverse of last weekend. Last weekend, you go up to New York, you lose the first 2 games of that series. You're feeling awful. It's one of the lowest points of the season, especially after that Thursday night game that you somehow lose. But then you come back and you win the next 2. And then you go into Milwaukee and you win a series there. And you're feeling really good. But, I mean, going back to that Mets series, it's the opposite of the Marlins series, right? Because you lose the first two, you win the next two, and so you're feeling confident. But now here you are a week later on a 4-game series. You win the first two, you're feeling really good. Everybody's talking about the division again. But then you lose the final two, and now here we are thinking, okay, we're back to the 2024 team that we've seen for the majority of this season. And things can change very quickly in baseball. They can go on another little good stretch this week and have us all feeling good again. But this is what I've been saying. This team has been bad for long enough of a stretch this year that while I still have hope, nothing is going to convince me until I see them go on a 2-week stretch. And I mentioned everybody's talking about the division where they're still 6 games back. That is a lot to cover. They are much closer to not being in the postseason than they are winning the division. They only have a 2-game lead for a wild card spot. I'm going to repeat that because I feel like some people, myself included, have maybe taken this wild card thing for granted, that that's just there as a fallback option. They are 2 games away from not being in a postseason spot. And you got teams like the Padres and like the Diamondbacks who are really hot right now. They've won 8 of their last 10. When's the last time the Braves have won 8 of their last 10? They need that type of stretch right now. They need to go on that type of stretch for me to fully get back on board and saying, okay, this team is back. This team is good. This team has a chance to win. I need to see that 10 to 15 game stretch where they just go absolutely hot. And this should have been that stretch. And again, it very well could be. It's still a possibility, but this is a huge bump in the road, in my opinion, and what should have been a great stretch for this Braves team. Again, you earn the split in New York. That's great. You go to Milwaukee, you win a series there over a good team. That's great. You come back home against a team that just traded everybody. You win the first 2 games, and you can't find a way to win one of those second 2. It's just disappointing. And with the way things have gone this year, it just brings up those feelings of, it's just this 2024 team. They cannot get out of their own way. And a lot of times it feels like it's against these types of teams that they should just absolutely beat. And now you look back on this series. It's a close win on Thursday. They had to come back to win on Friday. Miami dominates the second half of the game on Saturday, and then they just dominate the whole game on Sunday. And now you look back at that series and say, man, we were lucky to get the first 2 in that one. I mean, this is a series where there should have been at least a couple of games in here that you dominate the team. There's no question. You score 6+ runs, and there's just no question about it. And there wasn't a single game like this. First 3 were all close. 2 went in the favor of the Braves. Weren't able to get the comeback on Saturday. Saturday, to me, was the key game. And if you would have told me on paper in this series which one was more likely to lose, I probably would have said the Saturday game. But after the way things played out and the offense putting up some early runs, having some really good at-bats, and you felt like that was the game, okay, they're going to score 5 or more runs, and this is going to be a win. They're going to go ahead and clinch this series. It just felt like that through the first 3 to 4 innings of that game. Things got away from Grant Holmes there in the middle innings. Still felt like they were going to come back and win because I had those good vibes with this team, especially coming after the comeback on Friday. And they just couldn't get it done. The offense just went completely silent. That carried into Sunday where they didn't score a single run, although they probably should have. I don't know how replay overturned that one, but it didn't matter anyway. But this offense just went completely silent. And again, now you look back on this series, they scored 4 runs, 5 runs, 3 runs, and 0 runs against that Miami Marlins pitching staff that, like, I love Edward Cabrera. I am a believer in him. I see his stuff, and I think, how in the world does anybody hit this guy? But they do. Other teams do. The Braves didn't. And again, you look back on this series, and it's very underwhelming. You had 3 home runs in the game on Thursday. You only had 1 on Friday. You only had 5 hits. Again, we're very fortunate to come back and win that game. He had 1 home run in the game on Saturday. Again, the Saturday one is the one that just gets me. You had 7 hits, you had 5 walks, but just 3 runs scored. Plenty of chances, plenty of opportunities, and just couldn't get it done. And then Sunday was just a complete and utter disaster. They had chances in that one. They had base runners in that game and just couldn't get the hits. And that we know this offense is going to fail, or sorry, they're not going to fail. They're going to struggle to score if they can't get the home runs. Didn't get that on Sunday. Didn't get enough home runs on Saturday with the 1 home run they had. It's just, again, it's this offense. You can't trust it. You just can't trust it for long stretches to be consistent. Now look at the pitching side of things. Morton and Schwellenbach were good. Holmes ran out of gas in that 5th inning. Fried just didn't have it from the very beginning. He struggled with control. Marlins finally took advantage of that. 5 walks for Max Fried. Again, not typical Max Fried. He's going to be better going forward. I will say in that game, and it didn't matter in the end, but it's the little things that get me when I watch this Braves team this year. They just don't do the little things all that well. And I look at that key inning, the bottom of the 3rd, and it always works out this way. The bottom of the 3rd, you had the runner thrown out at home, should have been safe, whatever. But also in that inning, I don't know how Austin Riley doesn't get to third base. When you see that throw go home, you have to be a little bit more aware of the play, of the situation. You see that throw heading towards home plate, because I need to go back and look. I don't think it was in a spot where it could have been cut off. That's clearly going to be a close play at the plate. I feel like Austin Riley needs to be at third base. And if he is, and everything plays out the way that it did, and that you can't always guarantee that in baseball, he scores on a wild pitch. I mean, that it's just the little things like that. And I'm not putting anything on Austin Riley here. It's just the little things like that I noticed from this Braves team that they just don't do well. And then you have a double steal on Max Fried, who does a great job generally of holding on runners, but I think he was letting the game frustrate him. Knew he didn't have as good command, and it's just an easy double steal. That is not on Sean Murphy. I had somebody on social media saying, why don't teams respect the arm of Sean Murphy? Those guys were halfway to the base by the time Max even delivered his pitch. There's nothing Sean Murphy can do about that. But it's those little things of, again, you let them steal 2 easy bases like that, it leads to a big inning. And then with Merrifield, if that ball is not hit directly at you, you cannot go home. You have to get an out. You got a pitcher that is struggling. You have to get outs there. And again, in the grand scheme of things, it didn't matter because the Braves couldn't score any runs, but it's just those little things. And by Whit Merrifield not taking that out, it leads to a 3-run home run. And again, you can't always guarantee things are going to play out the same way. And the game's over. And again, they didn't score any runs anyway, but a 3-0 deficit in the middle of the game feels a lot more easier to overcome. It is a lot easier to overcome, but it just doubled the lead. It's just those little things that really bother me about this team that the Braves don't do well. They're just not good enough this year. They're not good enough this year offensively to overcome these little mistakes that they make throughout a ball game that winning teams should make. And that's probably what worries me and disappoints me the most about this team, because they just don't have the offense to overcome that. Last year, they could overcome the inability to score without the home runs because they hit a ton of home runs. And it covered up a lot of these weaknesses that we're seeing this year. And this team just doesn't have the ability to overcome not making those little plays, not doing those little things well. And in fact, it feels like it's done the opposite. You have players that are trying to do too much because they know they don't have the ability to overcome some of these things. So it's a tough spot that this Braves team is in. Look, hopefully it's a little bit of a blip. You get the off day, which this team desperately needs. You get back on a roll at home, finishing off this homestand, hopefully strong against the Brewers. You go out on what should be a very winnable West Coast trip, and hopefully you have that 10-game stretch where you win 8 out of 10. The Braves need that. They have to have it. If they're going to, forget just winning the division, if they're going to get into the postseason, they have to have a 10-game stretch like that where they win out 8 out of 10. It's going to have to happen. And hopefully this is a stretch where it does happen But again, a disappointing series. Sorry I went on way too long about that, but it is. It's just disappointing because you had a ton of momentum. Even if you just win one of those games on Saturday or Sunday and win the series, even though it feels like it's a team you probably should sweep at home, but even if they just win that series, you still have that good momentum going, and they were unable to do that. So very disappointing. Again, they just continue to fool me. This time, at least it was maybe 4 steps forward and then 2 steps back. But I need to see longer stretches from this team, specifically the offense, before I can really start to believe once again. All right, next we'll turn our attention to the minor league level. Giancarlo Lara really starting to heat up. That's great to see. But a couple of the Braves' top pitching prospects, A.J. Smith-Shawver, Hurston Waldrop, still struggling to get their groove back. We'll discuss all that here next. When you're at the ballpark, what is your favorite cold treat? For me, I like to go for the soft serve ice cream. Get the ice cream in a helmet. That's what I love to go to whenever I'm at a baseball game. When you're taking in America's pastime, don't forget to hydrate with Liquid IV's Popsicle Firecracker flavor, a surefire summer hit. Get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America. And I can tell you firsthand how great this is. My wife loves it as well. She's a big fan of the lemon lime flavor. They also have a berry flavor. They have a pina colada. So many more that you can choose from. Just tear, pour, live more. 1 stick plus 16 ounces of water. Hydrates better than water alone. Powered by LIV, Hydroscience, and optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. 3 times the electrolytes of leading sports drinks. 8 essential vitamins and nutrients, always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. No more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use our code MLB at checkout. Again, that's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. You enjoy listening to sports all day while you work or do things around the house? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories, can't miss analysis, and opinions. You can find that on YouTube or in the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's jump into the Minors Monday segment here. A.J. Smith-Shawver, we'll start with the top prospects. A.J. Smith-Shawver at the top of that, 4 1/3 innings, 4 hits, 2 walks, just 2 earned runs with 6 strikeouts. So it was good to see the strikeouts there for AJ. Hurston Waldrop, though, just 2 2/3 innings, 3 hits, 3 walks, 4 earned runs, and 5 strikeouts. J.R. Ritchie, 4 2/3 innings, 5 hits, 1 walk to earn 7 strikeouts. So again, good to see the strikeouts there for Ritchie as he is trying to shake off the rust from having Tommy John surgery. Nacho Alvarez back down at AAA, went 3 for 13, 2 doubles, but 5 walks. Sounds more like Nacho Alvarez and a stolen base. Jose Perdomo hasn't played since July 29th, and DSL games are still going on, so not sure what's happening there. Hopefully he's okay. Luis Guanipa, good to see him start to rack up some hits here. He's 5 for 22 at Augusta, had a double. No walks to 5 strikeouts there, though. We'd like to see some better plate discipline and 3 stolen bases. Drew Hackenberg, after his good run that he was on, takes a step back. 3 innings, 8 hits allowed, 1 walk, 6 earned, did have 6 strikeouts. And then Drake Baldwin, 6 for 21 at Gwinnett this past week with 2 doubles and a home run. He continues to swing the bat well there. Also at Gwinnett this past week, Alejo Lopez, 5 for 13 with 3 walks and 2 stolen bases. Chadwick Trump, 5 for 15 with a home run. On the mound, Parker Dunshee, 5 innings, 3 hits, 2 walks, 1 earned, 6 strikeouts. And Ian Anderson gets through 5 innings, only allows 4 hits, does walk 3, but only 2 earned runs and 4 strikeouts. Could we see him at some point here pretty soon? At Mississippi, Justin Dean, 8 for 24 this past week with 2 doubles, a walk, and 2 stolen bases. Cal Conley, 6 for 22 with a triple, 3 walks, and 4 stolen bases. And then David McCabe is back. He missed most or all of this year so far, recovering from Tommy John surgery. Not a pitcher, but hitters can have it too. And he is back this week. I believe just 1 for 10 in his first 3 games back. We're good to see him getting those reps back, trying to shake off the rust as well as a hitter after having Tommy John. Roldy Munoz, 2 games, 4 innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, no earned, and 8 strikeouts. In my mind, he is one of the best reliever prospects in the system. Just big electric type stuff. Struggles with command, as a lot of these pitchers do who are turning into relievers. But if he can figure it out, he has electric stuff. Good to see him have in a big week with 8 strikeouts and 4 innings pitched. And Jorge Juan at Mississippi, 3 innings, no hits, 1 walk, no earned, and 3 strikeouts. He has 45 strikeouts and 31 and a third innings this year, but 23 walks. So again, usually that's the case with some of these big throwing relievers. They got the good stuff, but don't have the command to be starters, turn them into relievers, and just hope that command comes along in shorter outings. Down at Rome, they only played 3 games this week, had several rainouts there. Adam Zabrowski, 4 for 10 with a double. Giancarlo Lara, highlight of the week for me. He has really been turning things on, especially his last 3 starts where he has 22 strikeouts in 16 2/3 innings. But this past week, 5 2/3 innings pitched, only 3 hits allowed, did walk 3, but only 1 earned run with 9 strikeouts. He's still walking too many batters, but he has gone 5 or more in 5 of his last 6 starts. So again, after a little bit of a hiccup to begin the year, starting the year late with a little bit of an injury, he's really turning things on here. I don't know that he'll make the jump to Mississippi this year, but great to see him finishing strong, much like he did second half of last season. Blake Burkhalter also at Rome, 7 innings pitched, 5 hits, no walks, 2 hit batters, but no earned runs and 5 strikeouts. That was a complete game that they had there. Again, a lot of rainouts this week, so they had a couple of 7-inning games to try to get some more games in. Mitch Ferris, 3 innings, 2 hits, no walks, no earned, and 5 strikeouts. And then finally at Augusta, starting to see some 2024 draft picks get mixed in here. Patrick Cloizzi, the bat out of St. Louis that I really liked. He went 2 for 4 in his professional debut. Shortstop Colby Jones was 1 for 3. Titus Dimitru was 1 for 4. And Mason Guerra was 0 for 4 as those 2024 draft picks make their debut. So that's fun to see how these guys get going. And then Albert Rivas on the mound, 4 1/3 innings, 4 hits, no walk, no earned, and 7 strikeouts. I didn't see any of the 2024 pitchers making their debuts, but hopefully we'll get some of that here soon. The FCL season is technically over. Obviously, teams will still play some games in Complex League there, but it's not anything official that you're going to get a box score on. But that season is officially over, so it makes it kind of hard to know what some of these guys are doing. But I would imagine there's still several guys there at the Complex League getting work in. But hopefully we see some of these guys in Augusta so we can see some stats on these players. But that is your Minors Monday update. Let me know who surprised you the most, who has impressed you the most here on the minor league level in the past week or this season. Leave those comments down below. But next, we'll turn our attention to what's coming up this week. Got the off day finally, and then you got 3 more against the Brewers, who the Braves just saw. We'll preview that series here next. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the points, against the numbers. It really is just that simple. All you got to do is what I'm doing right now. Open up your PrizePicks app. You want to get into the Olympics? They got Olympic stuff on here as well. Soccer, obviously Major League Baseball, what we're following here. And all you got to do is pick the player projection numbers and then just pick more or less. Just first one that popped up here. They got J-Ram on Monday for 8 hitter fantasy score. You just pick more or less than that. Patrick Corbin will get more or less than 4 strikeouts. It really is that simple. You're not going to find Braves players on here because the Braves finally have an off day on Monday. But it really is that simple, and you can win 100 times your money now on PrizePick with as little as 4 correct picks. So you can turn $10 into $1,000. That sounds pretty cool. And it's available in Georgia and the great state of Alabama as well. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with PrizePicks. Now, the Braves chose not to put Ronaldo Lopez on the injured list. And again, I said this on the postcast. I apologize. I don't know who to credit for this, but I read it on social media. Somebody messaged me and said the Braves are trying to break the record for having the most injured players on their roster without putting them on the IL. I don't get it. I think it's, if you want to shut Lopez down and try to, conserve his innings, it's great to hear that he's probable that he could be back soon, but I still don't think he's throwing a bullpen. At least I know as of Saturday, I didn't hear anything different on Sunday. I imagine he's got to throw a bullpen before he's going to pitch. After the way Fried looked, coming back after not pitching for a couple of weeks, kind of worried about Renato Lopez after not starting in a real game for a couple of weeks, trying to come back and hoping that he's not too rusty. So the way the Braves have worked their injured players this year is, with Riley and then with Laureano and now with Lopez, it's been very confusing. Been a little strange and odd, I guess is the word I was looking for there. Odd is the one we'll go with. But, to make room on the roster after they activated Max Fried, they optioned Dylan Lee, who in my mind, he's probably the fifth guy in your bullpen. I trust him more than Jesse Chavez, even, who's been really good this year. I trust him more than Luke Jackson. But he's the only one that has options left. So he's the odd man out so that you don't have to DFA anyone else. And that's what the decision they come to. Again, I don't know that I necessarily agree with it, but that's the way that the Braves went. And hopefully Renato Lopez will be back very, very soon. Won't be in the Brewers series as they already have the pitching matchups set for that one. And I know we just previewed this one, but let's go through it again here really quickly as the Brewers come into town starting on Tuesday. The offense is 17th in OPS over the last 30 days, 23rd in home runs over that stretch, but 5th most walks and 8th most stolen bases. I don't feel like that's really what they did against the Braves of Milwaukee, but definitely keep an eye on that. Hopefully limit that. Braves do a good job typically, Sunday notwithstanding, of not walking many batters. So you make them earn it, get on base, and then hopefully do a better job of holding runners and throwing them out. And that seems to be the recipe for keeping down this Brewers offense, or make sure that you don't leave a two-strike cutter in to Willy Adames. Looking at you, Jesse Chavez. But again, not one of the better offenses in baseball. And the pitching is honestly just kind of middle of the pack and everything. They're 13th in ERA over the last 30 days. And again, just kind of in the middle of the league over a lot of stats here recently. So it is a good team. They are in the, middle, or the top rather, of the NL Central. But I think it's a team that we saw Milwaukee. It's a team that you can get to. Now, who's hot? Rhys Hoskins has a 1.218 OPS in his last 12 games with 5 home runs. Jackson Chourio has a 974 OPS in his last 11 games with 3 doubles and 3 home runs. And Garrett Mitchell has an 894 OPS in his last 12 games. The bullpen, Milner, Peguero, Payamps, Devin Williams, who's only thrown 1 game since coming back. We saw some of these arms up in Milwaukee. Those are the ones they're going to rely on. And the pitching matchups for this series, it's Colin Ray versus Chris Sale, Freddie Peralta versus Charlie Morton, Frankie Montas versus Spencer Schwellenbach. I think that's the exact same pitchers that we saw. I think in maybe the exact same order that we saw them up in Milwaukee. I know we saw Ray and Peralta in that one. So again, hopefully the Braves hitters are familiar with these guys, have a good game plan going up against them, and can get another win against a good team. Like I said, the Braves have played better, it seems like, against better teams this year. And hopefully that will continue for the Braves as they try to finish off this homestand with a winning record before they go out west. But it'll be Braves and the Brewers starting on Tuesday. You got your off day on Monday. Again, it's one the Braves really, really need. They've been in a long stretch of games. They've had some pitchers that are injured. They've had to work things out in the starting rotation. Offense looked a little tired in the last game and a half. That's no excuse. You still should be ready to go and win those games against the Marlins. But again, this Braves team does need a little bit of a break. And hopefully after that, they can go on another big run here, or go on a big run rather, not just a 5 or 6 game stretch like they had. See them go on a big run and put a good stretch together to get back in this division race. This is the time. And look, I talked about this on the Mailbag podcast on Friday or Wednesday, whenever I recorded that before going on vacation. This is the stretch. If the Braves are going to get back into the division race, it has to start now. You got the Phillies who are in the middle of a tough stretch. The Braves have a pretty easy schedule over the next 2 weeks. If you are going to get into this division race, get it back within 3-4 games before you face the Phillies a couple of times at the end of August. This is the stretch where you have to do it. You have to take advantage of these teams that you're about to play. Weren't able to do against the Marlins. Again, the Brewers are a good team, but a team that you can beat. And then you go on the West Coast, which is not easy, but a lot of teams out there that you should be able to take care of. But this team just hasn't done that consistently enough this year for me to believe that they suddenly will this time around. But I'm hopeful. I am very, very hopeful. And I still think they can get it done. I want to believe. I'm trying to believe. But it's series like they just had against the Marlins that keep holding me back from really buying in to this team in 2024. But hopefully they change that narrative starting on Tuesday against Milwaukee. That will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Thanks so much for joining us. Subscribe on YouTube if you're new. Hit that thumbs up button. Follow us on social media at shortstopball, at LockedOn_Braves. And now go make your second listen Locked On MLB. We're solely over there as bringing you everything from around the league. Again, that'll do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.